Hi everyone, my name is Leanne and today we're going to talk about my reading year so far. So I wanted to have a little bit of a catch up on my reading and how it's gone for the first quarter of the year, and I'm going to be answering the questions in the quarter year crisis tag. I feel like I've been generally having a really fantastic reading year. I think in terms of getting my reading up to like the quantity of books that I have read kind of historically, I'm back up at that reading level now. Like, I'm really confident that unless anything massively shifts in the pace that I'm reading at throughout the rest of the year, I'm going to be back up to reading over 100 books in the year, which is fantastic. I didn't feel any kind of negative way about reading fewer than 100 books last year. Like, I still read loads. Like, I read 90, but it was just the kind of habits I built in my reading years previously to that. I was reading over 100 books without really making any effort to do that, like any special effort. But yeah, I'm going to use the questions from this tag and I'm going to answer them, and we might end up going on a couple of tangents along the way, but let's see how we get on. So the first question is, how many books have you read so far this year? And I have read 35 books so far. I'm not including anything that I've read in April. I'm just literally doing this like the first quarter of the year. So I read 7 books in January, 16 in February, and 12 in March. I've read over 10,000 pages, and as an average, I'm reading just under 3,400 pages a month, which I'm really happy about. And I have read a couple of really big books this year. If I keep going at the pace that I'm currently reading at, I will read, according to my spreadsheet and the maths I've done, I'll read 122 books in the year. I think it's probably realistic that the pace I'm reading at will kind of ebb and flow throughout the year, but I still feel pretty comfortable with knowing that I'm going to read 100 books this year. So the next question is, do you have a new favorite book that you've read this year? And if not, is there a book that was really close to getting 5 stars? So I have given one 5-star so far this year. I've given loads of 4 stars, but the only 5-star I've given is Rachel's Holiday by Marian Keyes. But in saying that, I don't think it's like a new favorite for me. Don't get me wrong, I loved it. And if you want to hear more of my thoughts, I spoke about it in my March reading wrap up. But I don't think it's a new like lifetime favorite. I think it would probably make my top 10 at the end of the year. Let's see. But I haven't had that one book yet where I'm just like completely obsessed with it and think it's like the best thing ever. So that's the only book that I've given 5 stars to. I've given 16 books 4 stars, 11 books 3 stars, and 7 books 2 stars. So I don't love reading 7 books that are 2 stars. I'd like to maybe readdress that throughout the year and be reading fewer 2-star reads, but I'm reading the majority 4-star reads, and that makes me really happy. Oh, and the next question is, are there any books you've given 1 star or were really disappointed by? So we've just covered that off, that I haven't given anything 1 star. In terms of my 2-star reads and which ones I was like disappointed by, I think the one I was probably most disappointed by was Adult by Emma Jane Unsworth. I think maybe if I'd read this book a few years ago, I would have found it more impactful, but I just found it kind of, I didn't think it was really saying anything that interesting. I didn't think the situation or the characters were that compelling. If you want to hear more of my thoughts about it, I will leave the wrap up where I talk about it linked. But yeah, it's one that I just felt really quite disappointed by, but it's not the only 2-star read that I had so far this year. The next question is, what genre have you read the most of? So I have a spreadsheet that breaks down like a lot of my reading stats. And according to that, the genre that I have read the most, at least by kind of how I categorize things, is just adult fiction. So I do break down my reading stats a little more precisely when it comes to stuff that is very like genre based, like things that feel quite specific, like romance or thriller. I do record those separately, but I'm quite strict about what I put into those categories. Like, for something to be in the romance category, romance has to be really the main central focus of that book. So 29% of my reading has been just kind of general adult fiction, but some of that may have like other themes to it. 23% of my reading has been young adult, but then I don't split that down in the same way that I split adult down. So if I read YA romance, it just goes into young adult. I don't break that down into it being romance. So it's a bit of an imprecise science how I record this stuff. Question 5 is a book that surprised you. So I've had a look at my 4-star reads and seen if any of those are books that I didn't expect to give that high of a rating to. And I'm going to go with Games and Rituals by Katherine Heine because this is a short story collection. And as a general rule, I don't tend to give short story collections that high of a rating for a few different reasons. I think, first of all, just by the nature of it being a short story collection, there are going to be some stories that I resonate or find value in more than others. And for that reason, I think it would be very unlikely I would give a short story collection 5 stars. But as well as that, I personally find that short stories are too brief of a form for me. I feel like as soon as I kind of get to grips with who the characters are and what's going on, and I feel connected to someone, the story's almost over. So I was really impressed with this collection and how quickly it got me to grips with all of the different characters in each new scenario. So it was definitely one that I enjoyed a lot more than I had anticipated. Question 6 is, what is a book that came out in 2024 that you want to read but you haven't yet? And I mean, I could list so many. And while we're at it, let's talk about my book acquiring. Now, obviously not all of the books that I've bought in 2024 were 2024 releases, but 50 books have come onto my shelf this quarter. So I am acquiring at a quicker pace than what I'm reading at. And of those 50 books, I have read 12. So 24% of the books that have come onto my shelves, I have already read. Now, many of those books are books that I've got for work. So 13 of those books. But even when you strip those books out, I'm still acquiring at a quicker pace than I'm reading. I really do feel like I need to slow down with the book buying. And this is an ongoing problem, right? This is something that I've been aware of for many years and haven't really done anything about. But in terms of actually answering this question and telling you about books that were published in 2024 that I would really like to read, there are quite a few. There is Where the Heart Should Be by Sarah Crossan. How to Kill a Guy in 10 Days was a book that I pre-ordered. There are romance books which I think came out this year, including Night Shift and Raiders of the Lost Heart. There are so many books that I could say for this question. But yeah, it's safe to say that the TBR is out of control, okay? So the next couple questions are about reading goals. So question 7 is a reading goal you are succeeding at. And question 8 was a goal that you need to focus on. So for many years, I set myself quite specific reading goals and challenges at the start of a new year. And I didn't do that for various reasons at the start of this year. One, I just didn't really get round to doing it and making a video about it. But also my kind of overarching goal for my reading in 2024 was just to kind of find joy in it again. So I know I've just spoken quite a lot about how I'm acquiring loads of books and not reading them at the same pace, but I didn't want to be too harsh on myself with holding back from experiencing the joy of buying books. I definitely did want to start reading more though. I think there were times last year where reading felt a bit like a chore, and I definitely didn't want to feel that way this year, and I don't think I have. I think I'm in this really fantastic momentum with reading where, yes, I'm making a really conscious effort to carve out time for it, but I'm carving it out in a really joyful way. Like I'm having more specific kind of cozy evenings in the flat where I'm reading, or like Saturday mornings I'm specifically carving out time to like have a cup of tea and a pastry and read my book. Like I'm just trying to find the joy and the celebration in reading again. But I do think the balance between reading and buying could just do with a bit more balance. So I'm going to try focus a bit more on that for the remainder of the year. One goal I did set myself in January was I wanted to go to more bookish events that weren't related to work. So I kind of got myself in this mindset that I didn't want to go to like book events or book launches because it might have put me in this kind of feeling of like being in work mode. Like I go to a lot of these events as part of my job, so why would I want to spend my evenings also at book events? That's kind of the mindset that I was in for a little while. So I've been to a couple of book events this year and a couple of talks. So I went to see Marion Keyes the other day, which was, oh my god, just so amazing. And a little while ago, I went to see Kylie Reid, and they were both Waterstones events for the launches of those authors' new books. And I'm just very keen to do more of that this year. It's brought me a lot of joy. It's kind of enabled me to separate the love for books that I feel at work and the love of books that I just feel in my own kind of personal reading. It's been really great for that. But beyond that, I don't really have any other specific goals. Like, I've not done something like, oh, I want to read X amount of these kinds of books per month. Like, I've not done anything like that. I've kind of just been like reading by whim, and that seems to be working really well. A habit that I've had for a little while now, but one that I have really consciously leaned on in the past month or so, and I'm very keen to lean on it in however many months I continue to find it useful, is listening to audiobooks of books that are already on my shelves and using that as a way to reduce my physical TBR. Until recently, I did have a subscription to Scribd. I've cancelled that now. I just feel like I maybe wasn't getting the best value from it. And what I have done instead is started to use BorrowBox, which is a borrowing app that you can get access through your library to. And that has been so brilliant. I mean, it doesn't have everything on there in the same way that something like Scribd might have or something like Audible does. But there's no restriction on the number of books that you can listen to, and it's completely free, and it's supporting my local library. No, there isn't absolutely everything on there, and even some of the stuff that I am really keen to read that's on there, yes, I might need to put a hold on it and read it in like a month's time or whatever, but it just didn't make sense for me to continue having a subscription for something that my local library can do for free. So there are all of the questions that are in the tag. There are some more stats that I record that I could probably dive into in a bit more detail, but I think I'm going to save that for probably midway through the year, because I just feel like there's a bigger data set to work with there, and it gives more of an indication of like my reading habits in year. When I look at stats for the first quarter of the year, it is massively skewed by the Irish Readathon. Like, so much of my reading is based on that month. So I think just once we get to the halfway point of the year, it's a much better indication of how my reading year is going and the stats involved and anything I might want to readdress for the second half of the year. So yeah, that's everything I'm going to chat about today. If you want to let me know that you are here but you don't have anything specific to say, leave me your favorite animal emoji so I know that you're here. Or if you have any thoughts on anything I've mentioned, do leave me a comment down below. If you want to connect with me elsewhere on the bookish internet, I would recommend following me on Instagram. That's how you can keep up with my reading best in between videos. You can follow me on Twitter, but it's mainly work stuff, which may be interesting to some of you, I don't know. But all of my socials are linked down below in the description if you do want to check them out. That's it for me today. I hope you're well, and I will speak to you in my next video.